On this episode of AV Week, we wrap up 2016. What were the biggest stories according to our panelists? Also look ahead to 2017 and beyond. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AV Week is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Atlas IED. This is AV Week, recorded Friday, December 23rd, 2016. AVNation's Consolidated Christmas.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio, visual, news, and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you are listening to this fine podcast. Thank you so much for downloading it. With me to chat about everything and the biggest stories of the year, which is what we typically do at the end of the year, first of the new year, is Josh Srago. He is a fine consultant and the editor-in-chief at AVNation. He's the guy that makes me sound smart. How are you, sir?
Working really hard to make you sound smart.
You know, it's a job. It's a job. That's a very nice cup you have there.
It is. Infocom.
An Infocom cup for those of you just listening. So, also with us, his name is Chris Netto. He works for AV Help Desk. He's also the host of our MHO show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, my man?
I am doing well. We're also going to have a couple other AVNation folks popping in and out from time to time, so we'll get their takes on what the biggest stories of the year. So that's kind of what we do. Around Christmas time, New Year's, Hanukkah time, we take a step back and say, okay, you know what? It's a great time for all of us to have New Year's resolutions. You know, mine is perpetually to lose weight and to grow facial hair. Those are my two. Neither of which is probably possible.
I did both of those.
And Harry did both of those. Harry Meade from Sonero is also with us. How are you, sir?
Not bad. It was fun that as soon as you pressed record, the meeting dropped for me.
You know,
that's because I was on my cell phone in the middle of Carroll County, Maryland.
But you know what? The fact that you're doing it from your cell phone, and I would like to point out, from safety reasons, Harry is parked. That you can do it from your cell phone. So that's kind of cool. So what we're doing is the best or the biggest stories of the year. So Mr. Srago, we're going to start with you for multiple reasons. But what were your big stories coming out of 2016?
Big stories, network security, and the massive amount of attention it's finally getting that it hasn't gotten in the past, not just in AV but in the public eye. Specifically relating, you go back to the DDoS attack about 2 months ago now, and just the impact that that's going to have on us moving forward. And then, of course, you can't ignore the year of mergers and acquisitions in the AV industry. That's what this year was. I can't tell you how many companies got bought anymore, because it seems like every other week there was a new one, or there was a new merger, or there was just something going on in the consolidation of the industry. And that's probably going to continue going on into 2017. But I'd say that those were the two biggest stories for me in terms of what really was happening. Yes, there was the wonderful fact that the court case for net neutrality made it through in June, right after I gave my presentation about all the possibilities if it didn't go through. So it was nice to have everything I had said a week before negated by a court. So thank you for that. But it was still a really good year in terms of all of those things and all the policy things. And now I'm sitting in abject terror in a fetal position most evenings as I think of what's going to come next for tech policy as we move forward.
Speaking specifically because we have a new president-elect coming into the States. So.
Speaking specifically because of who our president-elect is appointing to
I'm just explaining to those outside of the States and in North America that's kind of where you. And it's not just about President-elect Trump. You're right. It's about
If for President-elect Trump to actually make some form of technology policy, he would have to understand more than his 10-year-old son does. And as he stated during the debates, he doesn't.
Well, hang on for a second. And I'm not being an apologist. And if you'd like to know who I voted for, it's neither of the two main candidates. And you and I can have an email conversation about that. Isn't some of the presidential stuff, though, he doesn't have to know everything, right? I mean, as much as people love President Obama, some people love President Obama. He doesn't know everything about technology, but couldn't President-elect Trump surround himself with technical people? I mean,
you're making my point for me. That was exactly what I said. It wasn't about him. It was about who he's appointing, which is what terrifies me.
Okay, because he had a nice technology summit. He had freaking, not Zuckerberg, but Sheryl Sandberg from.
You and I have different definitions of the word "nice."
Okay, that may be. You mentioned mergers and acquisitions. What were your biggest one or two?
Well, you'd have to go with Samsung buying Harman being the biggest. Okay. That just being a massive coup almost. And the fact that the commercial aspect of it and even the residential aspect wasn't anywhere mentioned in that deal. It was all about the automotive, which I think was a blow to a lot of people in the commercial industry because it was not expected that was going to be the case. I'd say the other ones that come to mind were the sheer amount of integrators. Diversified bought 3 different integration companies this year. AVISPL bought Anderson AV, merged with...
AVISPL got bought themselves.
Well, VCs trading companies isn't...
A buy is a buy.
I understand, but it's a different classification when it comes to somebody who your owner is purchasing a company that offers a service versus purchasing a competitor that offers the same service is 2 kind of different worlds.
Okay.
So I would see Anderson, but again, it's just a reflection of the number of acquisitions that took place that were integrators buying other integrators was a big deal this year. And then on top of that, I mean, you can throw the waveguide acquisition in.
Yep.
Having a technology consulting firm purchased by a service-oriented group looking to expand where unification of services can come into play is the very model of everything this industry has been screaming at itself about for 3 years. Services, and now a service agency bought another service agency. They just offer different services, but their services are complementary depending on who you're asking. It doesn't matter what the services are anymore. It's just that you're selling services.
Compass is looking at their client base going, they need AV. They need both programming expertise, which is part of what waveguide does, as well as AV expertise. Mm-hmm. Harry, from your standpoint, what were some of the biggest stories of the year?
I've got to piggyback on the acquisitions and just the changing landscape of integration. The big definitely got bigger. I've had a little bit of a different way of seeing some things this year, going from a small mom and pop shop to a really decently mid-sized to upper-sized company. Just going back and just seeing how different the culture is between the everybody all the hats and then getting to where, okay, well, you're a little bit more specialized now and you're able to just sort of do your thing. It's very weird because I've seen some other integrators in my market go out of business this year. We lost 2 or 3 different integrators this year.
And to be real specific, Harry is in the Maryland, D.C. area. So that's kind of that mid-Atlantic area.
Yeah. And some of the guys went over because a lot of us had worked at this particular integrator at some point in our careers. And a lot of the guys went over to the auction that happened a few weeks ago for their remaining gear.
Wow.
And it was just it's just kind of sad because, that particular company in some form has been around for probably 60 years, but it's gone now. They couldn't keep up. What it was they couldn't keep up with the changing marketplace.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, if you, not to get too much into their books, but why you thought that was, and if that's the case, then you're not being able to keep up.
It's just that it's a different. There's a very different style of doing things between, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of bridge between the two different styles. You've got one style which is very boutique and one-off and doing the cool little things, and not necessarily even little things, but the more solo project type deals, where you have like a big installation, like a big video wall in a lobby or something like that, or just one-off specialty installations, versus you've got where I am now at Sonero, we go after full enterprises and take full enterprises from top to bottom and do all the rooms. So you have everything from your little rooms all the way up to your huge rooms. So it's just and if you're not offering the services that go behind it, going back to the service thing, that's where they're going to go out of business. And I would expect even more to go out of business next year.
Jeez. All right, Mr. Chris, what is your take on some of the biggest stories of the year?
Well, it's hard to follow these two guys because they just pretty much took a big old broad stroke across everything. One of the obviously mergers, acquisitions. I mean, when you're talking about this, SnapAV bought a bunch of companies as well. And so did, Sharp disappeared. They went by way of Foxconn. And there's a lot of different things that can be said. The big stories, the big splashes. But bringing it, I guess, more to a personal level, because that's what we do best at AVNation, because we're still out in the field. Me personally, I got to hear the stories of the displaced workers this year. There's been a lot of people that have been moved around. Harry, is one, and there's been others. We're happy to say that, I would say 90% of those people have located new jobs because they are talented individuals and talented folks. But, hearing their stories of what the people are looking for, everybody's looking for, cheap, person. And, these are qualified individuals. This is not, 7-8 years ago when the market was tough and you were getting people with MBAs out and they were taking jobs for $30,000, $40,000 a year. The AV industry is still producing good numbers. Companies are actually doing very, very well. Another thing on a personal note, though it's not affecting us on the commercial side, is the advent of voice control. We've been pushing back on the commercial side. No. I would refer back to the easiest one I can. Refer back to how is BlackBerry doing after saying that the iPhone would never join the ranks of corporate communications.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. I've used that analogy a couple of times in some articles that I've written, but that analogy, without the IT manager in that analogy, it kind of loses it, because the IT manager is the one who said, no, we have our BlackBerries. This consumer device will never be on our network. Correct.
And without, setting off the fuse from the Mission Impossible, for those who know that movie or TV show, off on Mr. Srago, who will come at me with a host of security and privacy issues and stuff like that. Just the point of voice control, I'm not talking about the big data side of it, is something that we're going to have to contend with sooner rather than later on the commercial side. And for the commercial integrators that are sitting here and listening to the show and do not think that, you are wrong. It will happen. You will have this requests coming in. And I think that we've basically gotten to the point with voice control where we spoke about this at the CI Summit over a year ago, and everybody looked at us with puzzled looks on their faces that voice and gesture was not there. Not a year later, it's here. And people are accepting of it. If you're using it at home, it's acceptable. Don't give me that, it works at home, but I don't care if it works at business. That's not necessarily what your end users are doing. Your end users are going to want to see it. So I think voice has become a factor in our industry. From an all-around perspective, we just had an MHO show, and maybe I'm dropping a little bit of a tease of what we discussed. But for me, 2016 was the big year for projection mapping. Why do I say that? Okay. We got some really, really, really good examples of projection mapping, guerrilla-style projection mapping from a company out in San Francisco called Obscura, who worked with Discovery Channel and the endangered species thing that they did in New York City and all across the state, where they were going around and they built projection to Tesla and were, basically doing guerrilla projection on buildings to make people aware of endangered species. And they lit up the Empire State Building. And then they're called back in November because during the election, there was Hillary and there was Donald on the side of the Empire State Building, and they were doing a scoreboard. So for our industry, my argument for projection mapping being the biggest thing in AV, it is probably the best way to sell what we do. It is it's flashy. It's the, oh, wow, oh my God, look at this. This is an oh, wow factor. If you live in Orlando, you see that on a daily basis down at Disney. I'm sure the Meade's going to attest to the amount of work that goes into doing their projection mapping, and so will Mr. Srago. But specifically, that is a very good use of our creativity, our technology, and our know-how, and it's on display. And a trade association like Infocom should take note of something like this. Bring that to Orlando, light up the buildings, make people in that area come by and take a look at what is going on inside the Trade Center is what we talked about at the MHO show.
Yeah.
So,
and here's the other thing about real quickly about voice control and gestures, and we'll get to Don Meade, one of the hosts of our AV social show, is I was going back through our CDA coverage about a week or so ago, and we interviewed Rich Fregosa, interviewed a company called Fibaro, Fibro. They had gesture control picture frames. They had gesture control devices. They had small little buttons that you hit, and you could program it with macros that make them do things. All runs the backbone of Z-Wave, which can connect to a couple of different control systems, Control4 being one of them. So we are that combined with the voice control, which I have talked about and written about ad nauseum, and you guys could probably talk, say how much I love it at this point. But those two things right there, they'll migrate into the corporate boardroom, because the CEO and the CIO are going to have this there in their home. They'll walk in and say, well, why can't I do that here? I can do it in my home. And this is, sometimes more important than my home. All right, Miss Dawn Meade from Net AV, also the host, as I mentioned, of our AV Social. How are you, ma'am?
Very good, thank you. My apologies for being late. I was giving blood, so make sure if you're giving blood this holiday season, people appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking very festive with a Christmas tree behind her head. So what were the biggest stories, one or two stories for you this year?
Oh, gosh. It's we said this last year, I think. It's kind of been a more of the same year, and yet it hasn't. There's been a lot of new things. So there hasn't been like any massive ground shaking thing I don't remember, other than all the acquisitions, and that obviously, is changing the face of us. But it's been more of the same. It's been more moving away from traditional box integration and stuff integration to the more systems and ecosystem based design for, those of us in the integration world. That has really picked up steam this year. And if after 2 years or 3 years of it, you haven't figured it out, integrators watching this, figure it out, because you're going to be out of business next year if you don't, because it's picking up that much steam. And the acquisitions are, I think, the other big story, in that we're really seeing recognition of AV as an industry now from venture capitalists, from the IT world, from some big businesses that previously we were unheard of. We were just, I always say we've been an industry around for over 100 years. The association's been around over 75 years, and nobody knows who we are and what we do. They're figuring it out. They're buying our companies. They're buying our products all the time. And they're realizing how integral we are to the modern business world. So I think that is also going to continue apace as the next year comes in, and we're going to see a lot more of that. But those, just off the top of my head, are the two biggest. I mean, there's little stories that involve certain manufacturers, certain products, but looking at the macro view of the industry, I would say the evolution away from box sales and the recognition finally of AV as an industry are the two biggest for me this year.
No. All right.
I got one.
Shoot.
I got one quick rebuttal since I'm not in the same house.
Oh, here you go.
Just for clarification, Harry and Dawn are not brother and sister. Harry Meade and Dawn Meade are married. So the power couple of AV.
And we'll be sharing a car later going to Pittsburgh that I will hear about this. I actually would disagree that commercial AV is getting its recognition. Just based off of how I think it's actually being commoditized and just rolled into other industries now. We talked about the acquisition of Harman for its auto stuff, not for anything that we deal with on a normal daily basis. Just as some of these other big companies, the big companies are making their money by stamping out rooms, commoditizing rooms. Okay, commoditizing rooms and providing the service to keep them up, and to me, it's more of a commoditization of what is going on in the AV industry as opposed to getting recognition that we are something. It's like, oh yeah, you guys do something, and here, yeah, okay.
But here's the thing there, Harry, and not that I have any desire to get into any kind of marital spat. You have the purchase of Samsung, and granted, the billions of dollars they spent. They even mentioned the fact that it was all their in-car entertainment systems, but the fact that Microsoft has entered into this industry, Cisco a number of years, and is getting more and more deeply into this industry. It may be commoditization, but it's commoditization because they see a problem or a pain that they think they can fix, and they can make money off of that fix. So.
Well, I was going to say, and if I can also rebut Harry's point, I think he's kind of proving my point, my warning to other integrators. He answered that question approaching it from the old mindset of this is how we've always done AV, and they're not buying this. They're buying this new thing where we're integrated with IT, and this new thing where we're approaching things differently. I think it's a case of the industry has evolved so much that we are of value to the IT world and able to do stamped out commoditized rooms. And that's a lot of value because we're everywhere. They understand that this technology is here. We need it. We have to do it. These people have been doing it. Let's bring them into our world and use their expertise and move forward in this new paradigm. I mean, I think that's really the case of it.
Yeah, but Dawn, you're talking about AV companies moving into a service model. Meanwhile, Harry's going to auctions where people are selling off goods that they couldn't sell that were selling on the shelves. Are we that smart yet? I think we're giving...
Some of us are.
Well, some of us are, but a lot of us aren't. There is some serious old schoolers still with that mindset that I am going to sell you this trinket and you're going to buy a bunch of it. And you know what? I got such a great deal. I'm going to put this on my shelf and I'm going to sell this all day. Meanwhile, digital media devices that you have bought in a year or in a year ago are next to obsolete today. So you want to still sell that box? Okay. People want to talk about 4K like it's the next thing, go to conferences and talk about how great 4K is. 4K is gone, dude. We've discussed this. 4K is now, 8K is on the horizon, and 16K is just over that horizon. You know what I'm saying? You go for every conference that we go to, for every trade association meeting that we go to, and every seminar that people want to talk about what the next big thing is. And I hear 4K, I'm going to go nuts, dude. It is happening today. It is happened already. And if we are not prepared for what is coming down the line, we got bigger problems with 4K.
And 4K will be there for a while because people still don't know what to do with it. And not I'm not talking about the resolution size. The resolution size is an evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a bigger palette, and I think that's some of the conversations that are being had are about what to do with that palette and with that size of palette, right? All right, as we wrap up here, and Srago will get you the first swing at this. Look ahead. Give me what are we going to be talking about this time next year for 2017?
There are two things, one of which I just wrote a very long article about for Sounding Calm. At least the part 1 was published in December. Part 2 will be coming out in January. And the other of which I have an NDA on, but will state as carefully as I can how screwed some people on this call and their associated companies or company types will be. So IoT is it's reality. It's here. I mean, it's not just the voice control. It's not just the gesture control. It's devices talking to devices without you having to do anything. This is the thing, is I keep hearing people talk about voice and I'm like, yeah, but I can walk into a room and make the room work just because I exist. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to wave my hand. I don't have to pull out the semaphore flags. Thank you, George Tucker. I will give you that love. I will just walk into a room. The room will turn on. It will log me in. It will log me into my meeting, and it's doing this already. We're in our infancy of it, but voice control is already, yes, it's cute and fun, but it also doesn't work reliably. Whereas it does not work reliably. It doesn't matter if it's yet. The statement holds true.
You're talking to an industry that lives off of good enough, dude. Come on.
Well, again, and this is where I go back to, if I can eliminate a user interface that I don't need it anymore. What purpose does it serve?
That's crazy. That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk, Mr. Srago.
I can just walk into a room and have it do what I want it to do. Why do I need voice control? Why do I need any control? That's kind of my point, is these APIs and this development is, we're going to start to see these things grow faster, not because AV companies are developing them, but because Silicon Valley is developing them.
Yeah. And there's ability there. Real quickly, you mentioned Semaphore. One of our biggest helps and one of the founders of AVNation, George Tucker, has several times famously stated that he has no use for gesture control, and he uses the whole Semaphore, which, if I'm not mistaken, is communication through flags. Is that right?
Yeah,
correct.
little flags.
Okay.
So the other part of this is we're starting to see this big data aspect emerge with companies that know what to do with it. There are companies out there that are developing smart software suites that can literally reach out, and as a business grows, let's say they wanted to add another room, that room will program itself. You put it on the network, you point your network at it, and it will say, oh, this is the parameter file I need. Great. Done. You're at that point now. If that starts to grow in popularity and that starts to show its efficiency, that an actual integrator isn't needed, because now you're talking about drawing, it's proper drawings, it's proper design work, and then the programming is going to take care of itself. And then you're utilizing VPNs and remote access in order to properly program it, except in the initial configuration. But as you continue to develop, and once you have that initial configuration dialed in, as you duplicate rooms, qualified integration firms are going to continue to diminish and continue to absorb themselves and continue to purchase themselves and continue. And we're going to see a smaller offering from these groups. Now, this may not happen next year. But from what I've seen, it's a lot closer than I think the industry realizes.
All right, Harry, from your standpoint, where do you see 2017 heading for us?
I was just I'll go a slightly different way and just sort of look at the tech. We saw in 2016 the beginnings of the advent of, yes, OLED. Of the super thin, very not necessarily flexible, but flexible in its application screens, and being able to put screens in any different location that you want, and that sort of thing. So I think video is going to get more integrated, but I think you are still going to need someone to do some of this initial integration. I agree with Srago on the enterprise stuff. Once you get the rooms knocked out, yeah, you just add rooms and they automatically just do themselves, and that's I think that's definitely coming. And I could see some of that happening now because it's already happening in some ways. But yeah, so again, more network-based stuff. I mean, we saw a lot of network-based microphones starting to happen this year. It's going to get to the point where we're just going to put in a big switch, a big network switch, and just plug everything in and point it all at each other.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I wrote about this year about a network layer control system, where the control box themselves, that one massive box that we point everything to, is most likely going to go away. There's a good chance for that. So, Mr. Netto, what do you say about 2017?
2017, let's go technology. I think that we are coming to a point where at some point we are going to lose ceiling microphones. I think I think at some point the beam array microphones are finally going to start pushing the hardwire ceiling mic out of the space. I don't think it's any it's any great shake to say that. More and more companies are starting to develop the beam array or beam forming microphones. So I see that as a trend that continues on in 2017. It's something that I've noticed, especially on when you're doing with the new building designs and retrofits. Just getting to the ceilings have always been a problem, and microphone placements are becoming a problem. And I'm currently going through a big product rollout on the BC side, on the BTC side. And, the conduits and all that, nobody wants to go ahead and start trenching out just because AV wants it there. So I think that there is always been an opening for a wireless microphone. But I think the beam forming ones are the only ones that actually blanket an entire room and probably do a better job than some of the other stuff. So it may be a little early for me to say the death of the ceiling mic, but we're getting there. I think that technology is finally starting to catch up even to our old friends on the audio side. So that's my bold prediction for 2017. The other thing I think sad trend that will continue is that you are going to still see mergers and acquisitions, but this time it's going to be bloodbaths, where people are going to be acquired and people are going to get let go that don't offer the skill set anymore that the companies are looking for. I am not just necessarily talking about you have to be IT only, but I think the whole mindset change or shift in business is finally going to hit the AV side where, you can't be one-trick ponies anymore. So, yeah.
All right. Ms. Dawn, you'll have the last word here on predictions for 2017.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and agree with two of my panelists here. Well, I actually agree with all three of them, but two in particular. To Harry's point, of course, 2017 is going to be the year that OLED finally makes its big breakthrough, because if you look over my shoulder here, Harry and I this year finally replaced our awesome Pioneer PDP 503 CMX plasma that has served us faithfully for over a decade, but didn't have an HDMI port to be had, with an LED. And so, of course, now that happened, I just a week or two ago saw a fabulous webinar with Melissa Doman on the upcoming digital wallpaper, OLED wallpaper, which is exactly what I've been craving for as long as I've heard the term OLED, which is like, 12 years now, Tim? Something like that.
Years, yeah.
An enormously long time. It is the promise. It is the thin, flexible, slap it on your wall and just make it happen. It bends. You can bend it off, lift it off. I mean, it's what I've been craving. So, of course, it's coming out in 2017 now that we've got this one. And maybe in 10 years when this one's up, the flexible digital wallpaper that is so sexy that I've been craving for so long will be affordable for me. That's my hope. But to Josh's point, And somewhat to Chris's point, we are going to continue seeing the acquisitions and the mergers. There may be bloodbath, but we're going to see a lot. And this is what I was saying earlier. You have to evolve. Integrators, techs, programmers, whoever's watching this, you have to evolve. If you're still in the hardware model, you're done. If you're in the IT model a little more in a services model, that's good. That's a good start. But we really have to take it on ourselves as individuals in the industry to focus on our cross-training, to focus on our knowledge of the related industries around us, because that's what's going to save our butts when these inevitable mergers and acquisitions happen over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Those are going to be the people that still have careers, the ones that are getting into IT beyond just, oh, and it's going to go on the network and I know just enough IT to be dangerous, to actually having network skills that they can use in an IT company, as well as bringing the AV value. Cybersecurity, my God, if you have any kind of cybersecurity skills and can also have AV skills and a little bit of IT, you're the golden child. That's where you want to be. It's what we used to, 10 years ago, we were looking for people to join the integration company that had the technical skills and new programming. And those were the ones we really wanted, and some design background. Now, if you have the cyber and the IT and some AV background, you're going to be the ones to survive the inevitable bloodbath that's coming. I think we have to think about cross-training. We have to look at new opportunities, new associations maybe that have certifications to bring those skills to the table so that we do have a career in the future. And it's going to continue in 2017. That's my prediction. Here in the DC area, we've had, just in the past year, 2 or 3 big players in my career in the past, 15 years, 15 to 20 years. The ones that were the big names in this region for a long time, completely out of business, one of which Harry used to work for. That's going to keep happening. They're not evolving, they're going to die. They are evolving, or the people within them are evolving, they're going to have careers. And I know from Harry's company Christmas party a few weeks ago, half of his current company, which is doing really well, are guys that used to work there and develop their skills and were then an asset to be picked up by this other company.
Wow.
So I see personal career training and personal growth a big issue for 2017. You need it because you're going to need it. And I see more of the buying and acquisition and evolving of who we are and what we do continuing apace.
All right, very good. You guys all use my biggest stories of the year, so I won't say that. But my only prediction is, and this is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, it wasn't a couple of years ago, but I said that Cisco was going to buy a control company. And I will step away from that slightly. Cisco announced this year that they were going to they were releasing a AVB TSN Avenue Alliance switch. Part of AVB is you can do control. So Cisco's getting into control. They've been getting into control. It's something that they're developing. So they don't need to buy one. They've got all the components ready. So they are still getting into getting into control. But buying a control company probably won't be happening for them anytime soon, simply because they don't need it. So, all right, guys, that's all we've got. Mr. Netto, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
How do people find you?
You can find me online at Chris_Netto on Twitter. You can find my company, avhelpdesk.com, on the interwebs. But I would also like to take this message, and I would like to wish a new hat for Josh, a new clock for Tim, better Bluetooth for Harry. And Dawn, I hope you find your sexy wallpaper. If not, Harry can help you look for it. And I would like to wish everybody a happy holidays and a prosperous new year as we prepare to, take a journey into 2017 with this crazy industry that we call AV.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Meade, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
How do people find you and or Sonero?
I was going to say, on Twitter at AVGrump. And the company is Cenero, CENERO.com. And that's about it.
All right, very good. Ms. Dawn Meade, thank you, ma'am, as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and putting up with my tardiness.
You were doing a good deed.
Try. You can find me online, obviously Twitter and most social media at AVDawn, like my name. I'm also, have been working the past couple of weeks on dusting the cobwebs off of avdawn.com. If you want to see some of the blogs I've published at AVNation and elsewhere on my personal blog, let me know if it doesn't work, but it should be redesigned soon. And if you want to find me corporately, NetAV is the company, net-av.com.
Right.
And as Chris said, happy holidays, everybody.
Absolutely. Also, Mr. Chris Srago, thank you, sir.
Chris Srago.
Sorry, Chris just sent me a message and I said Chris Srago. Josh Srago. And how do people find you, sir?
You can find me online at jsrago, S-R-A-G-O, on Twitter, LinkedIn, just Josh Srago. I'm the only Srago of the Josh nature on that site. And of course, you can always find me at AVNation. We're always interested in hearing what our audience has to say and offering the opportunity to publish. So if you are interested in setting a New Year's resolution to write for a web blog or join a blogging community, you can email me at josh@avnation.tv. That's josh@avnation.tv. And of course, you can always find me at my company, working the long hours, staring at the San Francisco skyline from Oakland at TEECOM. It's TEECOM, and we offer a wonderful array of services for technology consulting. So we are always happy to lend a hand and offer information, including starting to expand some new services going into 2017.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, don't forget about Josh's articles, his two-part series in Sonic Communications. He's also writing a super secret one that I'm kind of excited for Commercial Integrator. We'll talk about in a bit.
Tim, can I make some house cleaning?
Certainly.
Well, first of all, we'd like to congratulate Mr. Josh on being reelected to the CTS steering committee. Is that correct?
Yes, I was reelected. Actually, it was funny. Jeremy Caldera, myself, and I believe Matt Wood were all up for reelection and all won reelection. So it's going to be a fun year going into next year for certification because all three certifications from Infocom, CTS, CTSD, and CTSI are up for ANSI renewal.
Nice.
So,
the other piece of information or news that I have to share is that because he won't do it, if you follow Tim Albright on Twitter at TD Albright, you'll probably find this out, or at avnation.tv. Tim will be moderating a panel in Washington, D.C., which I'm sure the Meades will be going to because it's at the Kennedy Center.
At the Kennedy Center? Are you freaking kidding me?
That's awesome. January 11th. And you can go to the Infocom webpage right now, check under their events. You can register for free. It's hosted by Infocom and Panasonic. Tim's going to be talking some fancy stuff. I hope you get one of those fancy medals that they give at the...
I'm not getting a medal.
I want you to have a medal. I'm going to send you a freaking medal, dude.
I'm not getting a medal.
Harry and Dawn, please take him a big chocolate medal or something like that. That'd be awesome.
We will. And Harry has experience. He actually played the Kennedy Center Honors in '99, so he knows what they look like. We'll see if we can get you one.
Get it, and a kilt, because we know Harry has.
Okay, on that note, thank you all so much, and thank you. Seriously, this is kind of my. It's a nice time of year to reflect. AVNation has been growing the last 5 years. We started about 5.5 years ago. Every year, I am humbled and amazed at how many people listen and download our stuff and read our blogs that Josh is so kind enough to edit for us. So thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to watch. I really, really appreciate it. We've got some great stuff coming in next year. Our webmaster extraordinaire, Bradford Ben, is putting in the finishing touches on our new website, which should be posting sometime in the next couple of weeks. So we'll check that out. Chris mentioned the fact that I'm going to DC, the Kennedy Center with Panasonic and Infocom. Right after that is Integrated Systems Europe. We'll be hitting the ground running in Amsterdam. We are tackling a couple of other things. I'm going to a PSNI event called Super Summit. So if you're a PSNI member, come out and check that out. Then we're going to Digital Signage Expo in Vegas. Infocom is in there. CEDIA is in there. A bunch of other digital signage. New York Digital Signage Week is in there. A bunch of other events as well. So all of that stuff is going to be on our brand spanking new website, AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. I would also be remiss without mentioning the other people that make this possible. Those are our underwriters. AVNation has a different advertising and marketing strategy. We call them underwriters simply because we don't do actual overt ads. There's not like big, fancy things on our website, but they're people that give us money to help us do what we do. So thank you so much to all of them. You can check them out on our website under the underwriting section. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for continuing on this journey. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and God bless us, everyone.